Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, Jeff Waldorf with you. Got a great show for you guys on this Tuesday afternoon. You're running slightly late here today on the live stream, so apologies for that. But we are live and we've got a great show for you guys today. So I think I just said that already. It's been one of those days. So we're going to talk about obviously the big news about Trump's transgender ban. So that's some bad news for the day. We also have a possible path to ending the shutdown. That's going to be very interesting how that turns out. That's a little bit of breaking news on that. Then we have more Rudy Giuliani mess-ups. That's fun. Always fun when we're dealing with Giuliani. Then we have, of course, the ex-Trump organization VP, again dishing on Donald Trump and why he is having a big problem negotiating with Nancy Pelosi. So now, look, what we're talking about when it comes to the path forward in trying to end the shutdown, it doesn't involve Donald Trump. And, of course, you're going to see why in that story. Then, of course, we're going to go to a story about AOC. Great story. I wish we had the time to get the video for that, but I did not have the time. But nonetheless, it's a fantastic story. You're going to love her answers about basically why she is advocating for the types of economic policy that she is advocating for. You're going to love that story, so stick around for that. And then we might have a little fun with Donald Trump's TV habits. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love it. Okay, anyway. So before we get into the show, of course, I want to thank you for joining me. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Not only that, but hey, since we have hit 100,000 subscribers, which that isn't thanks to you guys, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. We now have the ability to do channel memberships. So what is the channel membership? Basically, you can sign up to support the channel on a monthly basis through YouTube now. So you don't have to go to offsite. Like if you're not comfortable working with Patreon, or whatever, you can go and sign up through YouTube using the channel memberships. And of course, just like the super chat, if you make comments, they're going to get elevated. I'm going to see them. I'm going to read them. So that's fun. So if you guys got something you want to say, or a question, or a comment, and things like that, if you're already a channel member, well, then I'm going to see that. It's going to be just like if you were sending a super chat. So that's kind of a cool feature, and then badges and stuff, I'll work that out. But I can also tell who in the live chat is a member just by the icon that's going to be next to your name. So that's also kind of cool. So I can see who's supporting you, or supporting me, I should say, and give you guys some special recognition for doing that. So it's kind of a nice little feature. You know, you don't have to sign up. You're still going to get the same content no matter what, and it's all going to be free. But if you want to support the show, that's one way that you can do it. And of course, there's a myriad of other ways to do it as well. Now, before I get into that, I do have an update on the fundraiser for the camera. Let's go to the fundraiser page here and bring that up real quick, because I had a donation earlier today that I want to give a shout out to. It was Daniel Martinez Tejada. I don't know if I said that right, but thank you for your donation. Anyway, that goes to help us get a brand new camera. All right, so enough effing around with that. Let's go into the news. Really important stuff. Okay. Let's hope that works. Okay. So earlier today, the news broke that the Supreme Court will now allow President Trump's transgender ban to begin. Now, that's definitely unfortunate news. That's terrible news for the thousands of people that are serving in the military that are openly transgender. Now, the justices voting 5-4, of course, you had the conservative justices, basically put on hold a lower court decision that blocked the administration's ban from taking effect. Now, of course, you have the 4 liberal justices Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Stephen Breyer, Sonia Sotomayor, and Elaine Kagan that who dissented against this, which of course leaves the conservative justices, including the two Trump appointees, Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh. So we can see where they stand on transgender rights. They apparently don't agree with transgender rights, which is disastrous for when it comes to equality. Now, the main case that was argued by proponents of these families and these transgender service members is that, look, if you do this, you're going to violate the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause. In fact, according to these court filings on behalf of current and prospective military members, quote, this case is about whether men and women who want to serve in the United States Armed Forces to protect their country and who are able and otherwise qualified to do so should be barred from military service because they are transgender. And that's exactly what it was about. There's no actual physical good reason to bar them from being able to serve, as subsequent studies have found out. And so, yes, that is a violation of equal protection. You are basically singling these people out for being transgender, for being openly transgender. So that's a big problem, right? Now, unfortunately, the hateful people in the administration, they didn't agree with that, and they referenced a 2018 Pentagon report that said that, quote, having transgender troops risks unnecessarily adding to the challenges faced by leaders at all levels, potentially fraying unit cohesion and threatening good order and discipline. Now, I've got to note that this has been in effect since 2016. And their argument is, I mean, it may fray unit cohesion. It may add some unnecessary risk to the challenges faced by leaders. So, of course, they couldn't point that out and all that stuff. Well, okay, we've had 2 years since they were allowed to be open. If there were a problem, wouldn't we have known that by now? Wouldn't that be apparent? You could just look at what's going on and say, see, look at that. I guess it didn't work. Boy, we gave it a good try, but it turns out that maybe having transgender people in the military is not a good idea. But there is no evidence. There is no evidence that it does any of that. But their argument boiled down to, and I think, and this is what a lot of these arguments kind of come down to, is like, we don't think it'll work out because, well, for one, these people, well, they're going to get bullied, and they're going to come after them, and they're going to affect their mental health and unit cohesion. So you finally, you suddenly find out the person serving next to you wants to be a woman, and then, I can't handle that. So their whole argument is, we're not going to be able to stop our soldiers from acting out and acting badly towards their fellow service members who are transgender. And keep it real, that's what it's about. And so, guess what? We're just better off banning them. Taking away their liberties, right? Their ability to serve in the military. And look, we have an all-volunteer military. So, it's not as if these people are being drafted. No, these people are voluntarily going into the military, voluntarily serving their country. And still, you want to say, nope, you can't do it because you're transgender. Now, again, that's the same argument that a lot of people use against trans people and used to use against gay people coming out. They would point out, oh, well, trans people have such a higher rate of suicide. Now, that's absolutely true. Now, why is that? Well, it's not because there's something mentally wrong with them or that they're somehow broken, right? No, it's because of how society and other people treat them. If you bully someone so badly because of who they are, to the point that they want to harm themselves, well, that's not on them. That's on you, buddy. You built that. So that's your fault. Because you couldn't leave people alone on a decision that doesn't impact you in the slightest. So please, spare me that ridiculous argument. It makes no sense. Moving on. Bloomberg also noted that the administration's policy, getting into some of the specifics here, is less absolute than Trump's original tweet. Which, by the way, don't you find it insane that the president will just issue a decree by tweet? Like, what is this? I mean, it's like a monarchy, but on Twitter. It's a Twitterocracy. A tweetocracy. I'll come back with that. We'll see which one you guys like better. But that's, I mean, essentially it's what it is. He's decreeing via tweet. And that actually caused Mattis, who was no longer in the administration, by the way, to be like, whoa, wait a minute. You didn't tell us about this. Well, now we can't actually do it. Now we actually have to look into this. And so they looked into it, and guess what they found? Well, basically, to go back to what they found, let's go to the argument, right? Now, they, again, want to make the argument that transgender people are medically and mentally unfit, so they can't serve. Now, one of the reasons they point out is, well, a lot of these people have something wrong with them, this gender dysphoria, right? Now, gender dysphoria is classified as a medical term for a conflict between one's physical gender and the gender with which the person identifies. And so one would think, well, I mean, if you're transgender, then obviously you have to have gender dysphoria, and that should be a disqualifying term. Now, is that true? Well, according to a RAND study done in 2016, of the estimated 1,300 to 6,000 transgender people who were on active duty, and cross-referencing that with the Mattis report, that found that 900 people were identified to having gender dysphoria. That's people who are out in the military. So they're basically open with their transgender identity. Only 900 of them have dysphoria. So if you want to make the argument, right, that those 900 people represent the other 6,000, or going to the other study of the military that found that there are almost 9,000 people identified as transgender, if you want to use that to disqualify everybody, that's absurd. That's absurd. So, no, let's not, like, we're going to have a discussion on transgender people not being fit in the military when a majority of them, a vast majority of them, are fit mentally and physically to be able to serve in the armed forces if they want to. Okay, well, apparently we're going to have that discussion. Now, the Bloomberg report, by the way, talked about, and this is what's, all of this is related to how messed up and how ridiculous this decision is, and not based on facts it is. Now, the administration asked the court to take the step of bypassing the federal appeals court level directly and deciding whether trial judges were right to block the ban. So, basically, they wanted to do an end run in order to basically ram this through, right? This decision, make a decision now. U.S. Solicitor General Noel Francisco told the justices the issue was one of, quote, imperative public importance, thus warranting special fast-track consideration. He said immediate review was needed to ensure that the injunction does not remain in place any longer than necessary. Noel Francisco, of course, Noel Francisco, of course, is basically representing the administration position. So, of course, that's the position that they are taking right now, is that we need to hurry this up. Let's go. Let's get these transgender people out of the military, which again is pretty ridiculous, right? And what they do is that in order to do this, they're making it sound like this is an emergency, but based on what we just talked about, it's not an emergency at all. So why are they rushing it through? It's a good question. There's one more piece of information here. According to Washington Attorney General Bob Ferguson, arguing in court papers, quote, openly transgender persons have been serving in the military for 2.5 years, and leaders from each branch have testified that their service has not at all harmed the military. So he also continues by saying, although the government cries that the sky is falling, it has offered no evidence to support its dire claims. You know why? Because there is no evidence. There's no evidence that says that allowing trans people to serve harms the military whatsoever. If it had been a problem, then why are the hundreds of already transitioned soldiers already grandfathered in by this decision? I mean, come on. So you already have a lot of people that have undergone transition, that are already in, and that are not affected by this. They can stay in the military, right? It's just preventing new people from coming in the military and then transitioning, or newly transitioned people from joining the military. Why is it leaving the other? If it's such a harm, well, we know the answer to that. We know the answer. Like most social issue policies made by the administration, and this is all on the social issues, this is basically social conservative red meat. This is also a monument, I think, to hate and intolerance. Keep it real. That's what this is about. This is about basically pandering to the hard right-wing conservative evangelical base that hates transgender people, and of course tries to get, and also I think it's a distraction from Giuliani sticking his foot in his mouth, the shutdown, which he's taken a beating on, and all the other disasters that are happening concurrently at this time. So I think the conservative court was like, well, we're conservative, we hate transgender people, so we'll just let it go and we'll give Trump a solid. You don't think that's what it's about? You don't know politics. It's definitely that's what it's about. Okay. Moving on. We may be close to the end of the government shutdown. Now, at least if this New York Times story is correct, and if Senate leaders actually do agree to do this plan. Now, the New York Times is reporting that the Senate will vote on two separate bills on Thursday that would bring an end to the partial shutdown. One is backed by President Trump that includes $5.7 billion for the wall, right? However, there's also another piece of legislation that's going alongside of it that would simply extend funding for the agencies through February 8th. So one is what Donald Trump wants, and the other is just to reopen the government. So this is going through the Senate, which we have an impasse. The House already passed bills to reopen the federal government without border wall funding. So it's important now that we've got the Senate that is also doing that bill to not pass to pass a bill without border funding. And then now they're doing one which does include border funding. So now we can have all the senators on record. So that's pretty interesting, right? Now, the plan, of course, is a compromise by Senator Mitch McConnell and Senator Chuck Schumer. Now, according to the Times, this offers the first hint of a path out of a partial shutdown in its fifth week and has left 800,000 federal workers without pay. Now, Schumer says, quote, "People are saying that there isn't a way out of this mess. Isn't there a way to relieve the burden on the 800,000 federal workers not getting paid? Isn't there a way to get government services open first and debate what we should do for border security later? Well, now there is a way." So, look, this is not actually a bad thing. Because what they've done is that they've basically separated this. So Mitch McConnell had refused to bring up a bill unless it involved $5.7 billion to the wall, right? So at least now he gets to bring up a bill, and then if it gets shot down, which I think is likely to happen, he can say, hey, I brought it up. I brought it up for consideration. Don't get mad at me, Trump. I was doing exactly what you told me to do. So, and of course, Trump fans, you don't have to get mad at me either, because again, I did what I was supposed to do. I said I will bring a piece of legislation to the floor that has border security. And if it fails, then it fails. Not my fault. It's the rest of the Senate's fault. So this is actually kind of smart. And then, of course, you have the partial funding bill to February 8th. Now, that is not that long of an extension. So if you think the government shutdown, is going to be over, for the short term, sure. But long term, what's going to happen? Now, that's the interesting question about this. What is going to happen if we do pass the second one and still don't have a compromise? I have no idea. Are we going to end up in another shutdown again? And so that's the question. So I don't know. What I see now is that, look, both sides have been unable to budge, unwilling. In fact, Donald Trump, as we're going to explain in a later story, has a lot of reasons that he's not going to budge, but basically he's been embarrassed. He's been painted into a corner. He painted himself into a corner with this ridiculous, demand that he gets funding for his border wall. And now he can't get out of it. And so, yes, this is a stopgap, but ultimately both sides, I think we're just going to be back here, right to the same place after February 8th. Because I don't see, and I would hope that the Democrats decide, no, we are still not going to give him funding for the wall. Yes, we'll give him something for border security, a couple billion here and there. And I think that money could actually be better served hiring immigration judges and things like that. So that'd actually be smart. And that would help our border, right? That would help the crisis, the humanitarian crisis. But again, I don't know. I don't necessarily know what's going to happen. So, I mean, we'll see if this passes, which one actually passes. Again, if you're, I don't think that the border wall funding bill will pass by itself. Certainly the Democrats will not allow it. But that second one, funding the agencies through February 8th, that's got some promise. But again, I think we'll be back at the same place later. So we're going to have to figure out what to do long term, because Trump, look, he's just going to keep on holding the government hostage until he gets what he wants. That's what Trump is. He's not a politician. He's not a negotiator. He's a hostage taker. And so, again, we'll have to see what happens. But at the very least, this will offer some sort of reassurance and help to the 800,000 furloughed workers. And I guess at this point, that's really all we can do. And that's really all we can hope for, is to help those families. All right. Now let's go one more story here before we take a break. So President Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, just continues to keep stepping in it. Over and over, he has made statements that have been proven to be false, and that he has had to walk back publicly. Now, it looks as though he has made another one. Now, what's interesting about this one is he might have actually just revealed possible secret tapes. Oh, this is great. Oh, I love this. Okay. No, this is according to Newsweek. Giuliani apparently may have just inadvertently revealed that he has listened to conversations between Michael Cohen and Donald Trump discussing building Trump Tower Moscow. So, of course, this is related to the disputed BuzzFeed story. Now, that story, which has not been proven and is being challenged by Robert Mueller's team, basically alleges that Trump ordered Cohen to lie to Congress about the Trump Tower deal. Now, again, through this entire thing, Giuliani has changed his story. He said something that he shouldn't and then had to walk it back because he embarrassed himself. He's a terrible lawyer. But as I said before, he might have actually revealed the existence of so-called tapes. Speaking to the New Yorker, Giuliani was asked what his latest opinion was on the disputed BuzzFeed report. That's where it started. He said, quote, "I guess the BuzzFeed story, I don't remember what it said about Cohen, but it said there was corroboration that the president talked to Cohen and told him to lie about it. I guess it was the Moscow proposal. There are no tapes. There are no texts. There is no corroboration that the president told him to lie." Wait. So now a couple of pieces of the evidence, so-called alleged evidence, that BuzzFeed says they at least looked at and don't have in their possession, which, again, okay, red flag, right? You want to point that out, that's fair, was text messages and emails. They said that they had access to and they read text messages and emails that confirmed that Cohen had been instructed to lie by the president. And this is according to two anonymous law enforcement officials. So again, red flags in that story. We're not sure if it's true. So now here's Giuliani saying, well, I mean, there were tapes, but there weren't tapes. Wait, what? Hold on here. He said, and I'll continue the statement, I can tell you from the moment I read the story, I knew the story was false because I have been through all the tapes. I have been through all the texts. I have been through all the emails. And I knew none existed. So wait, I have been through the tapes that don't exist. Hold on here. Are there tapes or are there not tapes? What is going on here? My God, Giuliani, could you be any dumber? Now, of course, when you hear that, you're like, wait, who was talking about tapes? Oh, I wasn't talking about tapes. I didn't ask about tapes. And so the reporter said, wait, what tapes have you gone through? Giuliani replied, I shouldn't have said tapes. They alleged there were texts and emails that corroborated that Cohen was saying the president told him to lie. There were no texts, there were no emails, and the president never told him to lie. Okay, so he walked that back and he said, okay, well, look, there's no tapes. I shouldn't have said tapes. Okay, so there are no tapes, right? Giuliani then clarified and said this, quote, well, I have listened to tapes, but none of them concern this. So there are tapes. So is what he's admitting accidentally that there are tapes between Cohen and Trump maybe discussing other matters? Or possibly, like we've seen Giuliani before with his walking back of statements and saying, oh, it turns out we actually did have some evidence that they were doing this, and but Trump wasn't. It was the campaign, but there was the collusion, etc., right? So what? Are there tapes? Did you just admit in Giuliani fashion that there were tapes? I don't know, man. It sounds like there are. So now, of course, he walked this back even later, clarified for the third time, and said, my comments were hypothetical and do not represent the actual timing or circumstances of any discussions. Look, who knows if he's telling the truth, right? See, but we don't know because of all the misstatements and lies. In fact, later on, and I think in like a separate interview, he's like, I really don't want to be known, have it on my tombstone that I lied for Donald Trump. Well, then I have a suggestion for you, Rudy. Stop lying. Just stop lying. If you want to not lie for Trump, you might just want to not be his lawyer anymore. Because really, that's all you're there to do is just to lie for Donald Trump. So, hey, you don't want to be known as that guy, then you should probably quit. Now, is he going to do that? Probably not. The money might be too good, but then again, he might also get stiffed. So, we'll see. We'll see. Now, there's one more here. Thing that I want to mention is all the misstatements, right? Now, there are things that he has said before that we later on found out were not true. For example, the timing of the Trump Tower deal. And then I want to basically reference that disastrous interview he had on CNN where he told Chris Cuomo, quote, I never said there was no collusion between the campaign or people in the campaign. I said the president of the United States. To which Cuomo pointed out, no, you said there was absolutely no collusion from anybody in the campaign, and that includes Donald Trump and everyone else. Where we have specific examples, Don Jr. is one of them, where, yes, there was at least a gigantic attempt of collusion, and so what you said was a lie. And then, of course, the whole Michael Cohen thing with Trump Tower Russia, which ended up actually going further into 2016 than they admitted earlier. So that's another statement that Giuliani had to walk back. So here we go. And of course, in another statement to clarify and clear up his comments, Giuliani said there was no collusion from Trump in any way, shape, or form, and that he had no knowledge of any collusion by any of the thousands of people who worked on the campaign. We have yet to be seen. That is yet to be seen on that. Now, in a separate interview, he claimed that if there was collusion, it's not illegal. So, excuse me if I don't buy anything that Rudy Giuliani says, because he is, for one, a really bad liar. He is terrible at this and should probably, for Donald Trump's own sake, resign. Okay. We'll take a break here. We'll come back. We'll have a little bit more fun with Trump's TV time. That's a fun story. So stay right here. We'll be back. Send your super chats, comments, questions, or sign up to be a member, and we'll read your comments. So we'll be right back. Stay right here around the nation. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf with you. Okay, so we don't have any super chats or anything or any updates on any of that fundraising stuff. So, yeah. So let's dive into more of the stuff. So let's go to TV time. All right. So we know President Trump loves to watch TV. In fact, he loves to live tweet Fox and Friends. Jeanine Pirro, Sean Hannity, and even Tucker Carlson. So again, we know that he spends a lot of time watching television. In fact, he's got quite a few hours of his day set aside for executive time. But it turns out that might not even be enough for him. At least according to former White House communications aide Cliff Sims. Apparently, according to Sims, Trump took screen time too far. At one point, according to the Washington Post, Trump was supposed to be meeting with then House Speaker Paul Ryan to hear about his party's replacement for the Affordable Care Act. So this was during the whole Trump Care fight. Now, what was interesting about that Trump Care fight is that Donald Trump didn't actually care. He had no idea the policy that his party was putting forward. It's like, I don't know, it's not Obamacare, so it's good, right? It's not Obamacare. Okay, it's going to be tremendous. It's going to be greater than Obamacare. It's going to be better, and more tremendous, okay? No, it turns out that it wasn't, but he had no idea what was in it. Because he said it was going to be greater, better for everyone. It was going to be cheaper. It actually wasn't going to be cheaper. It was going to cover more. It actually doesn't cover more. See, the thing about that is they really tried to push junk insurance plans, to push younger people towards that junk insurance plans that don't actually cover anything. Yes, they are cheaper, but if you get hurt or if you get, sick or you get cancer or whatever, and that does happen to younger people, well, then it covers just about nothing. So you're essentially screwed. But hey, at least you get better premiums. Where, of course, people who have pre-existing conditions end up getting shoved into high-risk pools, which ends up basically causing the entire system to go into a death spiral as people cannot afford to actually use their health care, right? Their health insurance. Now, look, we still have a problem with people not being able to afford health insurance, their premiums, or be able to afford to use their health insurance premiums. And that's the whole problem, health insurance care, because of those high premiums and high deductibles and things like that. But the problem is endemic in our system, not in the particular iteration of the system that was the ACA. So, anyway, Donald Trump, you ask him about any of that, he'd be like, no, it was great. What are you talking about? Yeah, okay, whatever. You don't know anything. And he doesn't want to know anything because apparently during this meeting, he decided to walk away. Donald Trump decided to walk away from Paul Ryan in order to watch TV. Sims, according to his new book, Team of Vipers, he was in the Oval Office explaining the ins and outs of the Republican health care bill. This was Paul Ryan. As Ryan talked for about 15 minutes, Trump sipped on a glass of Diet Coke, peered out at the Rose Garden, stared aimlessly at the walls, and then finally walked out. So, middle of a policy meeting, but he doesn't care about policy. So it's like, you know what? No, I'm out of here. I'm just going to go. Really? So Ryan kept talking, according to Sims, as the president wandered down the hall to his private dining room where he flicked on his giant flat-screen TV. So he's like, screw you guys, I'm going to watch TV. That's it. Like, I'm done with you. I'm done with this policy discussion. I don't care. I don't give a crap. Just do something that's not Obamacare and leave me alone. I got executive time. I'm going to watch TV. I'm going to go watch Fox and Friends. That's amazing. Now, apparently Vice President Mike Pence had to retrieve Trump and convince him to the Oval Office so they could continue their strategy session. Come on, President Trump. Let's just go. Let's hear him out. And then maybe later I can take you out for ice cream. Do you like ice cream, Donnie? Maybe, and then you can watch all the TV that you want, but you have to listen to Mr. Ryan, okay? I don't want to. Oh my God. Look, I know I'm obviously making a giant joke of it, but it is no joke. In reality, this is not somebody who is fit to lead. He is not fit to run anything. And yet, here he is. He's the president of the United States. For God's sakes, we need the 25th Amendment already. He's a child. He's a child. He can't control himself. He doesn't care about policy. He doesn't care about anything other than, I'm bored. I'm going to go watch TV. This is not somebody you need to be running the United States of America. So, 25th Amendment, guys, we got to get him out of here. Get him out, get him out, get him out. And if it doesn't, if they don't have the balls to do the 25th Amendment, then we got to vote him out. Either way, we've got to get rid of this guy because he is not fit to run anything. Okay. Disaster. Okay. Moving on. More shutdown stuff. All right. This is an interesting segment where I'm going to actually give some credit to Democrats. Whoa! You didn't see that one coming. All right. So the shutdown has entered its 5th week, and President Trump continues to have a real problem with negotiating with Democrats during this shutdown. So it has fallen right now to the Senate to try to negotiate among themselves, Senate leaders, some sort of compromise that will basically either allow Trump to have funding for his wall, which I think is a non-starter for Democrats, or be able to set up a situation where the Republicans and Democrats have to come together to override a presidential veto. And I think that the latter situation is probably what's going to happen. Now, here's the thing about that, right? So the negotiations have continued to break down, with the last negotiation between President Trump, Chuck Schumer, and Nancy Pelosi basically falling apart when Trump decided he was just going to leave the room. Although maybe he was just leaving the room because he was bored and wanted to go watch TV. Oh, who knows, right? But in this situation, I actually was wrong. I thought the Democrats were going to fold immediately. Turns out they've actually stood strong for over a month. I mean, Chuck Schumer is the guy who normally has a spine the consistency of Jell-O. He has not folded. And then, of course, you have Nancy Pelosi. Now, Nancy Pelosi, I am not a Nancy Pelosi fan, but it's not because she's weak. No, she's actually strong on issues that she wants to be strong on. It's just sad that those issues are never progressive issues, or are very rarely, I should say, issues that progressives care about. Like, imagine if Nancy Pelosi actually believed in Medicare for all, if she wasn't getting health insurance money, right? Or money from health insurance corporations. She could actually be able to be a person that would get things done. Because, again, she is fairly strong in her convictions, but her convictions are corporatist. So, now, she is actually staying super strong on this as well. So, that's actually gives some credit. And now, it's that fact that is giving Donald Trump a real problem. Apparently, Nancy Pelosi is too strong for him. Now, that's according to former Trump Organization executive Barbara Ress. Now, she said, quote, "There was never a woman with power that he ran up against until Nancy Pelosi. And he doesn't know what to do with it. He's totally in a corner." Now, look, Nancy Pelosi, she is the Speaker of the House, right? That means the Democrats are in power because turns out the voters were like, we're tired of Republican rule. We're going to elect 40 new Democrats to the House. So now Pelosi has the Speaker's gavel, so she's actually got some power, right? So now he doesn't have control of the government anymore, which means he can't basically steamroll over the Democrats. He's actually got to make a deal. And, of course, she has the power to turn down any deal, which she has. She has turned down, I think, a couple of deals that included funding for Trump's border wall. So now, the only leverage he has now in this situation, in this wall fight, is shutting down the government. And, look, that's only for as long as the Republicans will allow him to do so. But it's not just her political power, because she has a great hand, which is why she hasn't folded, right? She knows she's got the leverage. She knows she's got the power. But it's not just that that bothers him. It's the fact that she is outplaying him, right? And he apparently can't stand that because he believes that women are literally inferior. I'm going to let Barbara Rez explain.
Trump has always felt that men are superior to women. He even told me that. He'd say, a good woman is better than 10 good men. And he meant it as this enormous compliment because he thought that women were inferior. So in his mind, any woman would be inferior to him, even the best of the best. And here's Nancy Pelosi. She probably is the best of the best. Problem is, she's his match. She is not inferior to him. She is, in my opinion, from a point of view of deal-making, far superior.
No, look, if you're talking about far superior deal-making to Trump, let's be fair, it doesn't take much, right? But at the same time, she is, in her own way, very savvy. You don't accumulate the amount of power that Nancy Pelosi has by being stupid. No, you definitely part of that is selling out to corporate interests, for sure. But look, that's a different story for a different day, right? But here's the thing. You know what? The fact that Trump won't attack powerful women because he has no idea what to do and because he thinks he's superior and he is being taught that he is definitely not, I think that's why he won't attack AOC. That makes a lot of sense. He does not know what to do with her because you come at her, you're going to get the clap back. You're going to get the clap back on Twitter. She would absolutely annihilate him. I mean, AOC, you check her Twitter. It is littered with the destroyed egos, the husks of fragile conservative men and terrible centrist Democrats. I love it. You want to talk about strong, right? So AOC is absolutely strong. Now, when it comes to fragile egos, well, then we go back to Trump. And this whole shutdown fight, you have to understand, this is not about policy. It's never been about policy. That wall was proved that, look, it's been proven that the wall is not going to work. There are tunnels under existing fencing. That wall is not going to stop tunnels, right? Not only that, but a majority of the people who come here undocumented, I think it's somewhere around 68%, come here legally and overstay their visas, which means they fly in, they don't cross the border. And that actually that number is about 62%, as only 38% of undocumented immigrants come here via border crossings. And that doesn't necessarily even mean the southern border. And people from Mexico, we've actually seen a gigantic drop in immigration from Mexico over the past few years. So that wall is a vanity project. It's basically, I built something and it's tremendous and it's got my name on it, theoretically at least, because, oh, look, people will refer to it as Trump's wall, just like Obamacare, Obama's signature legislation, which was actually based on Romney Care. So nonetheless, he wants his name on something because it's all for his ego. He's a child. He's a baby. Very sad. But anyway, look, his ego is wrapped up in winning this fight. So that's why even though he knows he's getting destroyed in the press, he knows he's getting destroyed in the polls, he knows he's bringing Republicans down with him, but nonetheless, he can't back down. He can't allow himself to do it. In fact, according to Rez, she said earlier in that interview, quote, there are certain basic tenets of negotiation that Trump does not believe in, like the win-win deal or give and take. Trump's I demand, and this is what I'm going to get strategy has worked for him in certain circumstances where he had all the leverage and power. However, now he has neither. And that's really, really important. So he's used to coming in, Donkey Konging the situation, right? Taking over and saying, you will do exactly what I say. You will give me exactly what I want. In this situation, Pelosi and Schumer are like, Yeah, no. Yeah, but I don't think so. Come back with a better offer. And it's not like you couldn't get a better offer with the Democrats. All you have to do is offer a clean clean dream act, right? And and Democrats will fall over themselves. Like, oh, you're gonna do a dream act, or you're gonna give pathway to citizenship to DACA recipients? Sold. We'll make you a deal today. In fact, one of the earlier deals offered $25 billion for the wall. Donald Trump walked away from it. Because it's not an I-win deal. Because he didn't get everything that he wanted. He only got some of what he wanted, and it wasn't good enough for him. Because he sucks as a deal maker. He is a terrible negotiator. And so he's stuck now because he's an idiot. And he's going to continue to sink, right? He's not going to give up. So it looks like in order to end this shutdown, we're going to have to eventually rely on the adults in the room to try to fix this mess before regular people get hurt. And I just hope that there are enough adults in the room left to stop him from really hurting people. Okay. One more story here. I wish I had the video for this, guys. But we'll have to make do without it. So on Monday, author Ta-Nehisi Coates interviewed Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, they were doing this at MLK Now, which was an event hosted by the organization Blackout for Human Rights. So now, look, I'm going to urge you to watch the whole event because it actually is tremendous. Oh, man. Oh, now I'm starting to talk like Trump. Sorry. Oh, boy. Bigly. I'm in bigly trouble. Anyway, again, I urge you to watch the whole event. It's a fantastic event. Coates and AOC, they had talked about a lot of different topics, from her childhood and political awakening, of course, to MLK Jr.'s legacy, to him fighting for economic justice and against war, American imperialism, and all that stuff, right? So it's fantastic. Anyway, one of the highlights that I want to present to you came when Coates asked AOC to talk about her proposal for a 70% marginal tax rate on people making over $10 million a year. Now, that policy, of course, is incredibly popular when you present it to the American people. They're like, yes, let's tax the rich and then use that to help regular people. Let's use it to do something like a Green New Deal, also something incredibly popular even among Republicans. So now, in her answer, she says this, quote, "The question of marginal tax rates is a policy question, but it's also a moral question. What kind of society do we want to live in? Are we comfortable with a society where someone can have a personal helipad while this city is experiencing the highest levels of poverty and homelessness since the Great Depression?" No, it's not. I'm not saying that Bill Gates or Warren Buffett are immoral, but a system that allows billionaires to exist when there are parts of Alabama where people are still getting ringworm because they don't have access to public health is wrong. I think it's wrong that the majority of the country doesn't make a living wage. I think it's wrong that you can work 100 hours and not feed your kids. I think it's wrong that corporations like Walmart and Amazon can get paid by the government, experiencing a wealth transfer from the public for paying people less than a minimum wage. It not only doesn't make economic sense, it doesn't make moral sense. I love that answer. That is a great answer. Now, one of the references she made, it was kind of an incorrect reference, but that's fine. People mistake all the time. It was actually hookworm. So ringworm's a little different, but come on. She was basically referencing a county in Alabama where residents get hookworm because they lack basic sanitation. So that is, basic sanitation is public health. So you have people in Alabama living in places where there's no sanitation at all. So people are living next to open sewage. and that is next to water pipes where people get their water. So they end up getting exposed to human sewage, right? Raw sewage. Well, guess what? That breeds disease. That breeds parasites. In fact, one of the parasites was hookworm, which really only exists or should exist. We thought we got rid of it here in America back in like the 60s. So, or either the 60s or the 80s. We thought we got rid of it, but it's still here. It's still here in Alabama. Now, look, this isn't Venezuela, right? It's not one of those countries where, oh, the infrastructure is so terrible. And I don't use Venezuela as a real example, but Republicans always want to scream, oh, if you do any of AOC's proposals, we're going to end up like Venezuela. We're going to be eating rats. Well, here in America, under American capitalism, we have people living next to open raw sewage and getting diseases that you only get in third world countries. But at least we live like capitalists every day, right? Look, these are miserable conditions. And so I love that she mentioned that, right? And all that she's asking is, how can that happen in a country that has billionaires? And the reason is, of course, we have a corrupt system. And we have, yes, a deeply immoral system that is driven by greed, that hoards all the resources at the top and doesn't distribute it fairly to the people. And so I love that she gave that answer. She is absolutely correct. And I love that she's driving the situation. And again, these are popular policies that most of Americans actually agree with. And so, look, AOC is a magnet for controversy. Not because of what she says is controversial, right? I mean, not to us, not to regular human beings. Because that answer you identify, right? She identifies with regular people because she is regular people, right? No, the reason that it's controversial or that she's treated as some controversial figure is because she makes the rich very nervous. You know, those people, those pundits on TV, right? They're all multimillionaires. So when somebody talks about raising taxes for people making over $10 million a year, these TV pundits, they all make $10 million or more a year. Like, that's going to be us. Oh, how radical. This is such a radical thing. No, what's radical is immoral too, because again, conservatives love to make the argument that taxing people's wealth is immoral, right? Well, living in a country that treats its poor so terribly that they get diseases, or not only that, but if they get cancer and they can't afford healthcare, they die. That's immoral. And so I love that she's making this point and she's talking about this, because before her, there were very, very few people, maybe Bernie Sanders, or actually not just maybe Bernie Sanders, but Bernie Sanders definitely, Ro Khanna and other progressives that were talking about it, but we weren't getting much media attention because of it. And now AOC has helped frame the conversation into where we're actually having discussions about this, and I think it's great. So keep on going, AOC. Keep on going. All right. Sorry about that. So that's it. That's what we got here. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. We have a member here that I want to thank, Jay. So, Jay, thank you for becoming a member. You can become a member as well by joining our membership program here on YouTube. So that goes to support the channel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you guys. TYT is next. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow.